everyone. My name's Nick. Welcome to the first installment of the Sunday Tape podcast. This is my co-host,
Tony,
and short for Anthony. I don't know why he's using his Tony name. Tell him to stop that.
That way I can't be tracked.
No, that's fair. Anyway, so this is mostly his podcast. I'm just along for the ride. Mr. Tony here, biggest Colts fan I know. This podcast will be centered around those Indianapolis Colts. Tony, go ahead.
So basically, the first episode that we're going to kind of cover is, going into the offseason, see what we can do with the cap space, due to the fact that the Colts aren't horrible in cap space whatsoever, but at the same time, they can make a lot of improvements to re-sign some of the key free agents that they do have. For instance, Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce, and so on and so forth. We also need a few things on the defensive line, and including the linebacker as well. So the defense needs an overhaul. Mainly, it could be done in the draft, free agency. We're kind of just figuring that out as we go or whatnot. Again, we're above average fans and give below average advice. So it is what it is with that. So, take everything we say with a grain of salt. If you don't agree with it, again, reach out. I'd love to have a conversation about it and then kind of just go from there with it. So to kind of start things off, first off, diving into the Colts cap and the management of the cap, that's the first thing we kind of want to cover in this segment. They're starting at, about roughly $35 million in cap space. Not totally bad whatsoever. Again, it could be better. It could be worse. That's one thing Chris Ballard has really done well in his tenure as Indianapolis Colts GM is the fact that he's managed the cap situation pretty well with contracts, making them front-loaded, back-loaded, cutting them before they get actually, the major meat and the bones of the actual contract itself. So it is what it is with that. If you agree with it or not, it is what it is. So diving into what we have right now is kind of looking at, the cap number right here being $35.6 million. And we have a few key agents to re-sign. Again, nothing too horrible. I think that puts them right around kind of like the middle of the pack, a little above average of what they're currently at. I believe it's about 12, I think it is. I'll have to look it up real quick. So starting off first, obviously the first thing that we're wanting to do is going to be, getting Daniel Jones under contract and extending him for at least 3 years. So with this website,
The Colts are number 11, by the way, in cap space.
So the Colts are number 11 in cap
Number
space.
11.
Again, that's not horrible whatsoever. But again, with having Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce, you are really looking at your number one quarterback as well as your number one wide receiver. Going into free agency that you need to resign. Plus, they have only two individuals signed to contracts on the defensive line for edge rusher, that being Latu and JT.
So going in before we do all this Daniel Jones contract mess, as a Colts fan, you're sticking with Daniel Jones. You're buying in right now after the 14, 15 games that he played this year. 14?
Yeah, well, in the games he went, I believe he was 8-4. I think that's the overall record was before he tore his Achilles.
Well, not even before he tore his. He had that? What was it? Oblique injury beforehand, and that slowed him down, injury. And then he was Achilles.
Yeah, he tore it against Jacksonville. I believe it was like second or third drive or whatnot. So pretty early in the game as well.
So you're not accrediting his success to just dumb luck. You think he could be the man in Indianapolis for however long, and you're done with Anthony Richardson. This is your guy.
So a few things to touch on right there, right? Is that we're kind of forced to have him as our guy.
This is true.
Due to the fact that we gave up all the draft capital for Sauce Gardner or whatnot, which at the time I don't think was a bad trade whatsoever. But giving up 2 first-round picks is kind of hefty, plus a player on top of it, and he's got a top 5 contract in the position that he's playing. That's the only thing that's really issues, that the 2 first-round picks. It'd have been a lot better if it was 1. But
nothing you can do about it now.
There's nothing we can do about that, Plus, I think that says a lot about the draft, to be honest with you. There's only one quarterback that might go in the first round, and that's first overall, and then after that, it's just downhill from there.
And then getting into personal beliefs, I don't think Fernando Mendoza is going to do well in the NFL. But that's just me, and we're talking about the Colts. So
we can talk about that at a different episode or whatnot. But at the same time, I think he's going to be pretty decent. The problem is, what team is he going to? Is that going to be a decent team or not? which is, again, it's more than likely going to be the Raiders. Again, that's talking about a different team, though. So, again, we can kind of dive into that at a later date. I mean, I think the Colts are kind of pigeonholed at this point and kind of trapped themselves into having to re-sign Daniel Jones. On top of, not much in the draft, on top of it, he's the only quarterback in free agency that I'd want on the team as well. Especially only being 28 years old, he's got most of his life ahead of him when it comes to his football career.
You're telling me you don't want to bring in Jumbo Joe Flacco?
No, I mean he's been on the team once. He did pretty decent or whatnot, but again he's in the twilight of his career. He's milking it for all it's worth, and hey, power to him at that point. So again, he might complete the circuit and go to the Steelers this year. That way he was a Bengal, Raven, Brown, and Steeler. At that point, you can say he was the entirety of the AFC North. So.
Yeah, like you said, diving into the draftable quarterbacks that are in this year's draft. You got your Fernando Mendoza, you got your Drew Aller, you got your Cade Klubnik. None of them are going to come in the NFL and be absolutely NFL ready. And then Carson Beck too.
Yeah.
And then I think honest to God, the most ready quarterback is probably Diego Pavia. And even then, I don't really like him. But anyway, I agree with you. I think their really only move is to stick with Daniel Jones. And then, because Anthony Richardson's coming in the season still hurt, isn't he not?
Well, at the tail end of the season or whatnot, there was kind of like some misdirection with that. Coach said he was good, coach said that he wasn't able to play because he had limitations, and then Richardson said that he didn't have any limitations. So it's like, okay, which one is it? So again, I think he's played his last down in Indy, to be honest with you, especially after taking himself out of the game like he did.
Yeah, we've talked about that before.
Yeah, I've never seen that at quarterback before.
Never.
It's like you don't need to take yourself out of the game. You can just run the ball to the next play or whatnot, and then do whatever you need to do to R&R at that point. But you don't just tap your helmet and say, oh yeah, coach, take me out for a few plays. That's not acceptable, especially when you're driving too.
Mm-hmm.
That just spoke highly about his leadership skills at that point, and I think he lost the locker room at that point as well. Not on top of getting benched right afterwards as well.
Yeah. So yeah, like all great points. Daniel Jones is the guy, Indianapolis. Now, potential contract rather. Do you go ahead and give him the keys to the castle, or 1-2 year deal, kind of prove it ish?
To be honest with you, I wouldn't mind giving him a 3-year deal. It's the thing about quarterbacks. It's most
very
costly
touchy
position. And basically you make it or break it with your quarterback.
It's the entire football team.
Look at exactly. It's your entire football team. You got to spend money on it. So it is what it is. You can either agree with it or disagree with the money, but at the same time, like the Colts are pretty much coaching for the job at this point. If they don't make the playoffs this year, they're all fired. I
was surprised they brought Steichen back this year after the collapse.
Well, and it's because we had the whole excuse of injuries, right?
This is true.
But the entire tenure of Chris Ballard has been excuse after excuse after excuse. The Luck retirement. And I was like, okay, give him a few more years or whatnot, try to find his quarterback. But then he was trying to find bridge quarterbacks every year. It was Phillip Rivers at first, and then Carson Wentz second, and then we traded for Matt Ryan in the twilight of his career. And then we picked up.
Was that a trade or was it a free agent signing?
It was actually a trade.
Really?
We traded, I believe it was a 3rd-round pick for him. And then we ended up trading for Carson Wentz. We gave them a 1st-round pick if he played 80% of the games, which he did. So I believe his was a first and a third, if I'm not mistaken. And again, it's just kind of like, every year finishing around 8-9, 9-8, it's pushing us to the point where there's nothing we can really do in the draft when it comes quarterback-wise, other than trade multiple first-round picks to go up in the draft for someone that's not proven. In my opinion, Daniel Jones is pretty much proven at this point. What you're getting with him. He's gone to the playoffs with the Giants, and the Giants was a pretty bad team at the time that he took him to the playoffs. So again,
diving into the contract itself again, I'm not comparing him to Sam Darnold, but I think the contract Sam Darnold got the 3-year $100.5 million contract with the Seahawks there. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to get that. That evens out to about an AAV of $33.5 million. Do you think he gets more? Do you think he gets less? Same?
Yeah, that's tough because obviously like the cap's gone up, and on top of it, Daniel Jones has the Colts where he wants them at this point. They're going all in on him. They've already told him that. National media knows about it. Everyone knows they have to, because what are you going to do? Not go all in on him, and then what? Try to trade up in the draft. You got a second round pick. What are you going to do with it? Try trading first overall. I don't know how well that's going to go, to be honest with you. And then the rest of free agency, what are you going to do? Sign Aaron Rodgers in free agency? Or that's not. He's in the twilight of his career. He doesn't know if he's going to play the next year or not. He hasn't come out and said that yet.
That seems to be the Colts' motto here.
So
Colts.
and it's what sucks about it. It's like, okay, you're quarterback purgatory at this point unless you sign Daniel Jones.
And we talked about it before. Riley Leonard honestly didn't look that bad at the end of the season.
I do want to see what else he's got, but at the same time, that's the problem with the Colts front office right now, is they can't bet on him right now. Mm-hmm. They can't develop him right now because they're all coaching. They're coaching for their jobs. It's either make the playoffs or you're fired. So they're trying to go the proven vet and then go from there. In my opinion, if the Colts don't make the playoffs this year, they're probably going to can everyone in the front office, mostly Chris Mallard. I don't think Coach Sykin's done that bad of a job. He's done some questionable things game management wise, but that's about it. Other than that, I think he's pretty solid as a head coach. I don't see too much on the market next year. Obviously, we can't peer in to see who's going to get fired and who's not, to know who's going to be available. But at the same time, I think he's the best option. Even in the market that just took place, it just seemed like there was a bunch of recycling head coaches, essentially.
Yeah.
That's all it seemed like. I don't think there was. I think maybe one head coach that got hired from college ball, and that was about it.
The head coach? Yeah, I don't think there were any this cycle. Going back to this Daniel Jones contract, before we get into the numbers of that contract, going to his protection, the offensive line. Obviously, the left side of the line, fine. You got Raymond, and then you got Quentin Nelson back there. Center, I like Bortolini. I don't know how you feel about him.
Had a good year.
The right side, obviously Braden Smith getting up there. Do we see a potential draft in his replacement? We could dive into that a little bit later. But that right side of the line might need a little bit of tweaking before.
No, 100%. And so with the right side of the line, right, you got at right guard, it's not Bortolini, it's Gonglaves, I think his name is. His last name, if I can't pronounce it right, I do apologize. Gonglaves or Conglaves, I think it was a G, Gonglaves. Yeah. He's pretty solid as the right guard. So we have our future right tackle in Jalen Travis. At that point, he started for, I think it was like 4 or 5 games for us, and he looked really solid the entire time. I know PFF had him rated like 74 overall in the last 4 games that he played, the only 4 games he played. And we went through a gauntlet there, Texans, Jags, some really good defenses, Niners, Seahawks, and he held up pretty well. So again, I think he might be that rookie might be the future at that point.
I think you have to, after he had the second half of the year he had, I think you have to re-sign Alec Pierce.
Oh, 100%.
But at the end of the day, it's an Alec Pierce thing. Do you want to re-sign in Indy with the questions at quarterback? Does he enjoy playing with Daniel Jones?
Well, and he came out and said he did. He said one of the biggest things that he was focused on, finding a new home. If we signed Daniel Jones in free agency, he'd be more than interested in coming back to the Colts, which is awesome. Because Alec Pierce, I think he's the true number one to this team. I don't think it's Pittman, just based on the routes and yards that they get every single game. Who does the defense plan for?
So you're not saying you think Alec Pierce can be a number 1 wide receiver on this team or on any team?
On this team.
Okay.
And on any team, in my opinion. He's just.
On a Super Bowl winning team, you think Alec Pierce?
Oh yeah, 100%. Dude's a freak of nature, right? He's 6'4" and runs like 4.4 something. So again, he's a big boy and he runs pretty fast. And there's a couple clips from us versus the Broncos where they were like, they very deception in the speed or whatnot. And I think he even got a touchdown against them. But again, even this year that he had, with the Colts, every year he's had it with the Colts, he's done pretty good. He's just kept growing and growing and growing. I know his rookie year wasn't too flashy. It is what it is with that. Second year, it was all right. Third year, took off, and then this year he just really took his whole skill set to the next level.
I will say that I do have him in my dynasty league, so he's been very, very beneficial for me.
I don't think that it makes sense to have 2 wide receivers on your team making $20 million, over $20 million. So if we can't trade him to someone like let's say the Bills or something, I think that'd be a perfect candidate because they don't have number one. I don't think they got number two, to be honest with you. They got a slot receiver and Shakir, and that's about it. So I think that'd be a good candidate to for a trade at that point. Especially if we can offload some of that dead money at that point as well. Because he's going to have a cap hit of this year of north of $25 million. So it says right here his cap hit's 24.6. I think it's a little bit higher, to be honest with you. Again,
I have 23 on the website.
23?
I'm looking at it right here.
Yeah, I don't think that's feasible, especially because our offense doesn't go around Pittman. It's mostly centered around Taylor, right? I mean,
mostly
exactly.
100% is around
with the line and everything else. So it's like you're not going to pay two guys on this team to be the two big dogs, right? Especially when there's
on a run-heavy offense.
Well, that and especially because there's so much more needed on the defensive side of the ball. The offense isn't bad whatsoever. They got a great line. Everyone's in place that needs to be in place when it comes to the offensive line. The running back room right there. You still got Josh Downs under contract for another year. Obviously, if we don't sign Alec Pierce back, keep Michael Pittman at that point. But Ashton Doolin's on wide receiver 4, which is pretty solid for even if he was a wide receiver 3 at that point. Plus, we got Tyler Warren too. It's like he's going to be coming up for a contract here soon too. I mean,
you still got 3 years,
and you got the 5th year option.
But
that's a lot of mouths to feed on offense.
It is.
You know what I mean? So when these guys go hit free agency, they want to be the dog. They're going to be the one that wants to be the number one on it.
My team, the Chicago Bears, have kind of ran into the same issue. They have so many people to feed the ball to. Who's the odd man out? Right now, it's looking like DJ Moore. But again, we're talking about the Colts. I was just making it comparable to the Chicago Bears. But obviously, not to toot my fan horn here, but the Colts don't have a Caleb Williams. So, depending on what you think about Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Anyway, so getting rid of Mr. Michael Pittman there. He's off the team, whether it be trade, cut, whatever. Preferable a trade, but it's hard to do that in today's NFL. Trade a receiver with all that money.
Oh yeah, So I think the Colts might eat if they do trade him. They're probably going to eat some of that cap. Again, it is what it is with that. But if you could lessen that, if he's making 24, 25 million or whatnot, if you could go half, that'd be pretty decent cap number safe at that point. Save 10, 15 million at that point, or just outright cut him, and eat 7 million of it. Whatever you're paying. Pittman, just switch that to Alec Pierce, who's, again, younger, more healthy, and he's an ascending player, which, in my opinion, I don't see Pittman extending past what he is right now. He's, 2 years in to his 3-year deal of his second contract, off his rookie deal, signed with the Colts. And, again, I just don't see him, signing again with the Colts. So rip the Band-Aid off now, get rid of him. He's hell of a person, hell of a player. Again, nothing, towards his character whatsoever. He's played injured and everything else. But again, going forward, if you're betting for your job, then, you're ultimately have to cut him or trade him. So that's where we're at with that.
So to speed this re-sign progress up here just a tad, we're gonna roll through this list pretty quick here. Either maybe have a little bit of discussion about certain players. Like I want to have a discussion about DeForest Buckner. Other than that, we'll kind of just roll through here. So, starting at the top of that list, DeForest. He still has one. Oh, you want to extend him now, or do you? He's 31, so he had a pretty significant injury last year too.
Neck injury. So, if we could restructure that, give him either another void year or just cut some of his cap his cap number down a little bit, I wouldn't mind kind of doing that at a point and save some money at that point.
Okay.
And then just kind of go from there with a little bit. Maybe give him another year or two on his deal. I mean, 31 is still not old.
But for a defensive lineman, I mean, DeForest Buckner has been elite for a very long time, in my opinion. I really like DeForest Buckner. But, you've seen it a lot. The only person that I've really only seen on defensive line that's been immune to age like that has been Aaron Donald. And he obviously no longer in the league. But he's really the only person that I've seen that's been really immune to that aging process on the defensive line.
I mean, Buckner's no Donald, but at the same time, it doesn't take away from what Buckner is, an elite defensive tackle. He's the only, he's one of the only defensive tackles on the Colts that actually can rush the passer. I'd go ahead and I'd even extend him a year or two or whatnot, just kind of lower his overall salary hit, because I know this year it's going to be $26.6 million. I mean, coming off a neck injury.
Is he going to come to the season healthy?
Yeah, I believe so. He should be fine by training camp. But again, you're going to be 32 here soon. It's like, dang, that's a hefty number for a 32-year-old.
Now, do you just come in and you say, hey, draft a replacement, kind of like later round pick? He's not going to play right now. Take him under his wing, kind of thing.
I mean, we can touch on that in the next segment or whatnot, and then kind of dive into the whole draft process. Because I actually think we should draft a defensive tackle pretty high, especially one that is specializes in rushing the passer. I'm tired of all the big run stuffers. That's fine and dandy and all, but get to the freaking quarterback at this point.
So go back to the contracts here. Quentin Nelson's obviously probably one of the best, if not the best guard in the league. So obviously,
yeah, he's a Hall of Fame guard on this team, still in his prime. I mean, if we can lower his cap number by extending him a little bit, that's fine and dandy. I'd go that avenue. But if not, again, just leave it alone or whatnot. He's got a couple years on his deal as well.
Then going down here, you got Mr. Ward. I like Trevor Ward a lot. You just got to stay healthy.
Yeah, and that's the biggest problem because he's already said that if he gets one more concussion, he's going to retire. He just had 3 this year. How many has he had in his entire career? You're probably guaranteed at least 1 concussion a year. So you're telling me that 3 games in, you're going to pull an Andrew Luck and retire, or 3 preseason games in, you're going to retire. It's like you're supposed to be the number 1 corner on the team. Plus, you have Sauce at that point. The issue with Ward's contract is that you don't, if you do cut him, you're not saving that much. That's the biggest issue with that. A couple million, yeah, that's fine, but you're still eating his overall cap number.
Because you got all that guaranteed.
Exactly. So if you cut him, you're getting $6 million. I mean, $6 million's pretty high, right? But it's not going to sign another number 1 corner or whatnot to replace him. $6 million a year. You're looking at least 20-some million a year. The next one down the list is Ryman, Taylor, and Bynum. You're going to leave all those alone. There's nothing you really can do with those. All those are studs, especially Ryman and Taylor. If you can extend them a year to free up some.
And Cam Bynum's no joke either. I like Cam Bynum a lot.
Yeah, he did really good for us this year.
Aside for his crazy dances, I love Cam Bynum.
Yeah, I'm not that athletic to do any of those dances, so I watch and respect. That's all I can do. Now we kind of get into the more pressing ones, right? Like, for instance, Grover, right? I'm not the biggest fan of Grover Stewart. I think he's run stopper. He's really good at that, but he's not. What he brings to the table as a pass rusher is less to be desirable. I think he's guaranteed probably 1 sack a year, 2 sacks at the most.
So my thing with pass rushing too is sacks. Sacks are great. Obviously, you love sacks. Rushing is all like. I'd rather see a lot of just pure pressure from the inside. Those 2 defensive tackles, than straight up sack. I mean, like I said, sacks are king. You want to see a lot, but it's also how much pressure they're getting on every single play, every single down that they're in the game. And I didn't watch much Colts football this year. What can you tell me about Grover Stewart? How much pressure he gets? I mean, on average.
On average, I mean, it's little to none per game. Again, he's more of a run stopper. He's there to kind of set the run lanes and make sure the running back isn't winning one-on-one against him or anything like that. He generates some kind of pressure sometimes or whatnot. But it's not enough to be like, okay, I want to pay this guy upwards to $14 million a year.
So is he a possible cut candidate for you?
I think so, especially his age. He's at 32 years old already as well. So it's like he's in his prime, probably got another couple of years left in his prime. But again, his prime is what we've already seen. And like I said, it's not a pass rusher. And that's what this Colts team needs, is a pass rusher on any avenue of the defensive line whatsoever. We have Latu, and that's it. Throughout the game, he's getting double-teamed or chipped and double-teamed. Again, he's neutralized most of the game because of that. I mean, he still makes plays. He's still picking off Patrick Mahomes and everything else. He had, I believe, 8.5 sacks this year. That's not bad for a second season whatsoever. It's respectable. But again, you're the only one on that team that's generating any kind of pass rush. Kwity Paye had 3-4 sacks.
It's the same thing with the Bears. They have one pass rusher that's the top dog, and everybody else is kind of just there kind of deal. But anyway, he's, like you said, Grover Stewart, probably a cut candidate if you're the Indianapolis Colts, save a little bit of money there. Going down the list, Kenny Moore, another corner. The Colts secondary is one of my favorite secondaries in the league. If they're healthy. So like you said with Trevor Ward, he gets hurt again, he's probably done. So do you try and get one of those corners out, or do you try and keep all 3 and just hope for the best?
Well, and with Kenny Moore, he's been a stud for us for a couple years now. He's on his second contract with the team. He's undrafted free agent by the Patriots, got cut in camp by them, went to us, and he's just excited. He's been a Pro Bowler for us and everything else. Problem is, he just doesn't fit the scheme. It's a more he was great in zone coverage. He was great in zone corner. Problem is, now we're playing a lot more man. 75% of the time, he got beat way too often.
So if you're the GM of the Indianapolis Colts and injuries aren't a problem with Ward, are you trading Kenny Moore or trying to get rid of him?
I mean, you can hope to trade all the guys that were, on the bubble, the roster bubble, or on the cut list. But at the same time, it's not a perfect world. So I think Kenny Moore is one of the cut candidates, to be honest with you. Just with trying to save some cap money by signing both the number one quarterback as well as the number one receiver for this team, plus getting a pass rush in here. There's rumors that Trey Hendrickson, he's going to hit the open market if he doesn't get tagged. And you're looking at, I think his current contract is $29 million. You don't have enough cap space to sign a number one defensive end on top of signing a number one quarterback, wide receiver, and now you need defensive line help on top of it. And again, we got more possible cut candidates down the list that we're going to talk about as well, that you're going to have to replace those positions either in the draft or free agency, and more than likely it's going to be free agency because you don't have that many draft picks, especially in the the first half of the draft. You're missing your first round pick, you got a second round pick, that's cool, third round, and you get some extra picks from last year's free agency as well. Again, that's going to be later round picks. You're looking at an additional fifth, sixth, two more picks in the fifth, two more picks in the sixth, one of those 2 rounds as well. We'll see the list here soon when it comes out.
Yeah.
So I think Kenny Moore is a possible cut candidate. Grover Stewart is another possible one. Ward's kind of hit or miss if he wants to stay healthy or not. Extending Buckner, kind of lower his overall cap hit would be awesome. Pittman, again, if you can extend him, lower that number, cool. If not, trade him to a team that really needs wide receivers. Especially you're looking at the Bills.
So I think the last person I want to talk about here is.
1 second. Addie, go upstairs, honey.
No.
Yes. Now, come on.
What are you doing?
We're recording something. I'll show you later. Okay, go upstairs. Come on, sweetheart. Thank you. Go up the stairs.
So I think the last person I want to talk about here on this list, we already talked about Anthony Richardson, Sauce Gardner, you got touching, Tyler Warren.
I think we talked about Richardson off air. I don't know if we actually did it on the segment.
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, going back to Anthony Richardson then, I still think Anthony Richardson has potential. I just don't think he has it on the Colts.
No, 100%. I think you should trade him to a different team if you can, right? A good team, in my opinion, to target would be the Steelers. They need a quarterback.
With Mike McCarthy, though, I don't think that's a good fit.
I think it was a better fit
with Tomlin.
100%. But at the same time, I mean, it is what it is. They're not going to be able to get a quarterback in this draft. And the only thing they can do is re-sign Aaron Rodgers. I don't even know if he plays with Mike.
You can ship him off to the Jets and hope for the best there, I guess. I don't know. Anthony Richardson's a weird one. Obviously, a whole hell of a lot of arm talent.
The guy can make a 40-yard pass, look like a 5-yard pass, but
just the accuracy.
When it comes to making a 5-yard pass, is where he struggles. And I don't understand.
I really like Joe Milton too. I think Anthony Richardson's just a freaky athletic Joe Milton. He can sling the rock hard. It's amazing what he can do when he's throwing the ball. Just a little bit of an accuracy issue with him. But yeah, I think Anthony Richardson can do well on another team. Being a Bears fan, I've had quarterback woes my entire 24 years of life. That's a different conversation. So I think it's just a situation, wrong scheme, right quarterback kind of thing. I think he has potential still. Because he's only 25, 26?
I believe so, 23, 24,
26?
Somewhere in there. I know he's younger than Caleb Williams, but at the same time, the talent's there, but the guy just can't stay healthy whatsoever. Even in his first year, shoulder injury, everything else that transpired, he played a couple of games for us, and then he went down for the season. Next year, he played for us. He didn't do, it was hit or miss. He didn't do too shabby, but the whole thing that really put a bad and sour taste in my mouth was the fact that he took himself out of the game. That to me was just unacceptable, especially when you're trying to drive to win the game and you're taking yourself out of the game.
Yeah.
It doesn't work in the NFL like that. It shows your character as a person, your leadership skills. I think he's more worried about his brand than he is a football player at this point.
Yeah. So Anthony Richardson gone. Whether it be trade, whatever you can get out of him, which I don't believe is going to be
And then touching
anything.
on Anthony Richardson again, he had an orbital injury as well. So even when the Colts needed to turn to him this season,
He wasn't there.
He was unavailable again. So it's like, okay, year 3, you're still unavailable. Year 4 or 5, at this point, save $10 million and trade him or cut him or whatever you got to do at this point. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
And then touching on Ahmad Sauce Gardner. Obviously, you're keeping him. You traded 2 first-round picks for him.
You're not
He's
touching
here for
him.
the long haul. There's no touching him.
Zaire Franklin was the last
cut.
one I wanted to talk. You cut Zaire Franklin.
Cut. I'm just the guy cannot cover a blade of grass to save his life. Great in zone, great tackler. He just not even a great tackler last year. Everything was low. He was missing tackles left and right, blowing coverage left and right. I know every time they went against a good tight end, I put money on that tight end to score a touchdown, and I got money for it. So again, it's just ridiculous.
So you don't think it's a scheme thing? You think it's just a player thing?
Yeah, he's going to be 30 years old here soon too.
Zaire Franklin cut from the Indianapolis Colts. The rest of this list, Tyler Warren, obviously he's not going anywhere. Latu, not going anywhere. Josh Downs could be hit or miss. Jalen Jones, system corner. I like Jalen Jones. I think he's a good depth corner.
And so let's touch on Jalen Jones right now, because I'm going to surprise you with this one. I think we should cut him as well. He did not do good whatsoever when he had snaps. He's consistently getting beat. Again, I think he felt he was a great field for the old regime when it came to being a zone corner. But if you can cut him, I mean, he's technically like corner 4 or 5 on the list, and you can save $3 million by cutting him. I do that.
But like we talked about earlier with the injury issues, you never, because Jalen Jones can also step back and play safety, can he? Or no?
I don't think he's ever played safety for the Colts, to be honest with you.
I thought he did.
I know he's got snaps at corner even this year. Again, I was excited when he came back off the injury reserve and played some games for us. But when he did start for us, or when he did play, it was just blown coverage after blown coverage, or a PI call, and it was just he's too handsy. Again, I think he's not a scheme fit. I think he was a great scheme fit for the zone coverage when it comes to man-to-man. It's not working out. And I think that's the biggest difference you're going to see this year, right, is going to be, I wouldn't be surprised if this draft is entire defensive players. You might even get a corner in the later rounds.
Yeah. I think if we talked about earlier with Michael Pittman possibly departing, I think you probably draft a receiver in there. But we'll get to that in a second. So wrapping up this this segment here of the free agent / restructuring contracts and all that fun stuff with the roster. Main points: cutting Zaire Franklin, Michael Pittman on the way out, Anthony Richardson probably on the way out too, and then Grover Stewart and Kenny Moore also probably on the way out. Other than that, you're trying to keep everybody else. Raymond and Smith over there, got to get them re-signed too. Those contracts, or extended rather, not re-signed.
Yeah, to kind of lower the overall cap number or whatnot. That'd be really cool to do. But at the same time, like if we don't, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, those are 2 players that are going to be here for the long run. Same thing with Taylor. If you could extend him, lower that overall number, awesome. Save some cap space, even if it's a couple million or whatnot. It all adds up in the end to sign another player. Because again, like your targets are obviously going to keep, Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce, from hitting free agency, but then you also have to completely rehaul the entire defensive line, because there's only 2 edge rushers that are under contract for us, and one's Latu and the other one's JT. One's the first round pick, one's the second round pick. JT didn't really do anything in this year for rushing the passer. I know he had a handful of pressures, but again, the amount of snaps he played, he should have had a lot more than he did, especially being a second round pick from Ohio State. We had Kwity Paye, didn't do anything. We had Samson.
I know how you feel about Kwity Paye.
Dude. Nah, I'm not going to dive. I could make a whole video about that. But again, with the Kwity Paye situation, I thought, he was a great run stuffer as, a D end. He got so-so when it came to the pass rush. Again, he had a few good seasons with us. I think he topped out at, 8 sacks total last year. Again, not a bad season whatsoever. This year, he just felt, he was the healthiest he's ever been, and he fell completely on his face. I don't think that he's worth re-signing whatsoever. I'm glad that we don't have to. Just like Braden Smith is another, individual I wouldn't re-sign just because of health issues at this point. The last 3 seasons he's been unhealthy. He's just not going to be warranted, the cap number that he's going to want to come back, especially when you have Jalen Travis on the roster at this point. He's going to be the future at right tackle. Again, I think the offensive line is set in stone. Get some depth, in the draft from them. Draft another tackle, another guard or whatnot. But at that point, I think we're pretty much set on the offensive line. I don't think we're going to make a big splash whatsoever on it. I'd be really surprised if we do. That way we can just kind of focus on the D-line, some pass rushing defensive tackles, especially you understand all the players that we cut, obviously we have to replace them on the team, replacing the Pittmans, the Grover Stewarts, the Kenny Moores, the backup.
But I said during the draft, I think your best option, unless the Dolphins cut Tyreek Hill, which we can get back into that later. But wide receiver class this year, free agency wise, is kind of mid. But anyway, switching over to the draft here, Colts have only 2 picks in the first 3 rounds, a second and a third. Obviously, Sauce Gardner trade we talked about earlier. They don't have first round picks for the next 2 years. So we got a 2, 3, 4, a comp 6, and 2 7s. One of them being a comp. So, like you said earlier, you'd like to see, well, not what you'd like to see, but you wouldn't be surprised to see an all defense draft.
Not whatsoever, to be honest with you. And I wouldn't be opposed to it whatsoever either because, again, I believe we have one of our linebackers is going to be a free agent. On top of cutting Franklin, that leaves 2 spaces for linebacker right there. Cutting Kenny Moore, there's your slot corner, so you need replace him in the slot corner. Grover Stewart being your starting defensive tackle alongside DeForest Buckner, and then on top of it, you also have to draft Buckner's replacement at this point too because is this I know he was injured this year. For most of the year, he was also injured last year for the first, I think it was like 4 or 5 games. So again, injury concerns are starting to creep up, especially with his age and the contract overall number being $26 million. I think you go ahead and get his replacement this year, if not next year.
So speaking of that defensive lineman replacement, Texas Tech defensive tackle David Bailey. Mm-hmm. I really like David Bailey coming out of the draft here.
In our next video, we'll talk about mock drafts. There's a lot of prospects we do like, we don't like, what positions we target, and everything else, especially to help the Colts go into next year. So again, like I said, it's playoffs or bust at this point. It's playoffs or everyone's fired. It's that simple. So kind of like wrapping it up. I think they should resign Alec Pierce, Daniel Jones. Obviously, we're forced to, no matter what we want to do. You cannot like him. You can like him. When it comes to Daniel Jones, you got to sign him. Otherwise, you're going to lose next year. And there's no point of tanking whatsoever because guess what? You don't got a first round pick the next year either. So again, you're just making the Jets roster better. So again, you might as well try to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, the Jets won't do anything with it anyway.
Yeah, I know. And speaking of the Jets,
sorry, Jets fans.
Yeah, apologize. We still love you, but at the same time, just not your team. So again, cut Pittman. Be careful of the Ward situation. I wouldn't be too surprised if he retired or they try to get him to retire so they can recoup some of that sign-on bonus, that guarantees and everything else, because that's the only way you're going to get it back at that point if he retires. And then cutting Grover Stewart, Kenny Moore, trading Richardson, as well as Franklin. I think that headache's just not worth it. The skill set that he brings to the table just doesn't fit the defensive scheme at this point. Just moving on from them. And then, again, get a couple extra bucks by getting rid of Jalen Jones, who just doesn't fit the scheme as well. And then just going from there with it. Again, like I said, I think it'd be a heavy defensive draft.
Okay.
Thanks for hanging with us through today's first ever episode. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow us on your favorite platform and hit us up online with your takes. We'll be back with more topics next week. As always, bleed blue and let's go Colts.